Drop down below in the comments if you guys think that MSNBC is propaganda, plain and simple. Okay, let me know your thoughts down below. Shout out to Scott Bessent. All right, Scott Bessent completely destroys and annihilates this woke MSNBC host after he tries to attack Scott Bessent over President Trump's tariffs. Okay, and what you really see here is that with Scott Bessent, you know, he's a good speaker and he knows the truth of the economy as it is now. So when the panel, you know, it's like, when Scott Bessent speaks, okay, it's like the panel doesn't have a comeback, that kind of thing. That's really how it strikes me. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Shout out to the King Squad. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. Thank you for any and all donations. All the links to support the channel are down below in the description. And yeah, let's get right into it. Let's go.
Hey, with us now we have U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for being with us. Greatly appreciate it. I want to ask you about the government shutdown. It's over now. There have been estimates before that it might take 1% GDP in the fourth quarter from the U.S. economy. With it coming to an end, what's your best estimate right now about how much the shutdown will have ended up costing the American people and how quickly the economy will bounce back?
Joe, good morning, and good morning to all our veterans on Veterans Day. And, you know, we'll see, but you know, clearly there has been a hit to GDP with this unnecessary extended shutdown. I don't know whether it's going to be 1.5%. Going into this, the Atlanta Fed GDP now showed that the economy was growing at 4%. We'd grown at 3.8% the previous quarter. So I'm hopeful that if we can get reopened, we can make some of that back.
Are you optimistic that if the government gets reopened, let's say by the end of the week, that the economy will prove to be resilient and we will bounce back fairly quickly?
I think the economy is very resilient. I don't know how quickly the bounce back will be because, you know, obviously you talked about it a little in the earlier segment on your personal experience on personal travel, but there's also freight was being shut down. And, you know, so I think it's going to take a little while to get the supply chains back too. But I think the economy under President Trump's been very resilient, and, you know, growth has exceeded expectations almost every quarter.
So I'm going to talk to you about the shutdown and affordability and a lot of other issues. I am just curious, though, and as this shutdown was going, I just wondered, and since, you know, I may have slept through most of my Econ 101 classes at Alabama or been reading Sports Illustrated, I come to you for the answer to this question. And that is, when we have a government shutdown, if it had continued longer, when those flights stop going, when we're not able to move freight around, how much of an impact, let's say this would have gone another few weeks, I'm just curious, how much of an impact does it have on the U.S. economy when our ability to move people and to move freight around the United States is compromised?
Well, it gets worse and worse. You know, we probably started out at a billion a day, a couple billion a day, then up to 15 billion a week. And Joe, I don't know what it could have cascaded into. One of the things, I didn't want to alarm Americans, but I got a panic notice the other night that said that food inspectors were not getting paid and that they weren't going to work. So we actually could have had food shortages. I think because we're going to get restarted in time, that's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, and I think on the airline question, I think the smarter way for me to ask it is, how reliant is our economy on air travel, on the airwaves being open and us being able to move freight and move people across the United States?
Well, it's a core tenet of that, you know, along with trucking and shipping, but in terms of business travel, I received several texts from airline executives over the weekend before we got news that the shutdown might be ending, saying that they were quite worried for their businesses.
Yeah. You know, affordability has been an issue for quite some time. After the 2024 election, there were many focus groups and others saying, that President Trump won because of the affordability crisis. We heard the same thing this past week, that affordability remained an issue. I know you know about home heating prices. Food continues to go up. How much of an issue? The president was asked last night about affordability, and he suggested we didn't have an affordability crisis. I'm certainly not asking you to cross the president here, but I am curious, over the next 6 months to a year, how much of a challenge will affordability remain for people that, you know, want to heat their homes, want to buy a home, want to be able to pay their rent, want to be able to buy a new car?
Well, Joe, there's a lot there to unpack. A lot of the home heating costs are actually driven by states. I found it very interesting the other day when the governor-elect of New Jersey said the first thing she's going to do is bring down energy costs. Well, Phil Murphy did a terrible job, and energy costs are high because of the choices he made.
Facts. Okay. Shout out to Scott Bessent for even addressing that. Okay. And yeah, New Jersey. All right. Where do I start? But yeah, I believe her name is Mickey Sherrill. And yeah, she's gonna execute Order 66 on New Jersey, just like Governor Phil Murphy. It's gonna be a crap show. It's gonna be pretty bad, unfortunately.
Over the past few years, same for New York State. New York State refuses to put in these natural gas pipelines. There's an abundance of energy next door in Pennsylvania. You could bring down New York State energy costs just by putting in these pipelines. So part of it's a choice. But when you ask over the next 6 or 12 months, there are two parts to affordability. There's the price level, and we inherited a mess. It was the worst inflation 40 or 50 years. And I think what the president was very frustrated about is, you said everyone started talking about it, that after he took office, like where was the discussion during Joe Biden? Because during the Biden era, it was complete gaslighting. There was a vibe session. Mm-hmm. Steve Ratner, who you just had on, wrote a column basically saying, like, Americans don't know how good they had it. This is... You just don't understand, but the American people know what they're feeling. And what I expect over the next 6 and 12 months, as I said, there are two ways to address affordability. You stop the prices from going up, you get inflation under control, you have things like energy, mortgages come down. The other side is you get real working class wages up. And that's what happened at President Trump's first term. Hourly workers' wages did better than supervisory workers. The bottom 50% of households by net worth had a bigger net worth increase than the top 10%. For 2 years under President Trump, we had a 4.9% real wage increase. So there will be a point where if you keep prices under control or bring them down, they turn down and wages go through that line. And that's when Americans are going to be feeling good again. And that's what next November's election is going to be fought on.
Mr. Secretary, you talk about last year Democrats saying Americans don't realize how good they have it, they just don't get it. It seemed to be what the president was suggesting in the interview last night with Laura Ingraham. Here's what he said.
But other things, as you noted, have gone up. Beef, coffee, auto repairs. Is this a voter perception issue of the economy, or is there more that needs to be done by Republicans on Capitol Hill, or done in terms of policy?
More than anything else, it's a con job by the Democrats. They're saying, they just have to say, they put out something, say today costs are up. They feed it to the anchors of ABC, CBS, and NBC, and a lot of other, and CNN, and et cetera. And it's like a standard. I'll never forget they had used a word like manufactured. Do you remember the word manufactured? It's a manufactured economy. Nobody uses that word. Every anchor broke through manufactured. They do exactly what they say. It's such a rigged system. So are you ready? Costs are way down. Gasoline is going to be hitting $2 pretty soon, or around $2. Gasoline is at $2.70 now.
It's just over $3 right now. So, Mr. Secretary, it's not news anchors at NBC saying it. It's the voters a week ago saying life is too expensive in this country. So do you believe the idea that voters are saying affordability is a problem for me is a con job?
I believe even this morning you had two people come on and say, well, I look at the price at the pump and I know costs are up. Well, gasoline's down, so that is a con job, and I think that's what's frustrating.
So you don't believe that all the people who went to vote last Tuesday on the issue of affordability, my rent's too high, I can't afford to buy a house, groceries are too expensive, you think they're just misperceiving what's happening in their lives?
I think that that we inherited an affordability crisis. We have slowed the price increases down, and they are going to continue to slow down, and that real working class wages will go up, and that will address the affordability issue. And I think this is what Democrats are afraid to do. They've gone to the courts to try to stop President Trump and this great economy. That hasn't worked. They get overruled at SCOTUS. We go to the media, who carries their water. That hasn't worked, so they shut down the government and hurt the economy. Let's keep the economy open, let our policies kick in, and let's see if what I just talked about, let's see if those two lines cross. Costs come down, real wages go up, and then we can have an election next November.
You can blame the media. I understand that's part of your job, but let's talk about voters who are saying life is too expensive. Not just talking about Democrats in New York City who might have voted for Mayor-elect Mamdani, ranchers, Republicans in red states saying things are too expensive. What do you say to them? Not that.
Drop down below in the comments if you guys think that these MSNBC hosts are just full of crap. I mean, MSNBC ultimately is like one of the only jobs you can get paid for to just be paid, just to be full of crap. I mean, I'm gonna say that again. MSNBC is one of the only jobs that I know of where you just get paid to be full of crap. Okay, they completely try to gaslight the American people and then make it seem like Joe Biden, Jurassic Joe Biden, was over here making sure America was a great place for everybody, and he wasn't. Okay, the Democrats focus on inflation and jacking up the price of things and literally sabotaging the American citizens and prioritizing illegals at that. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, so it's just crazy to me how the Democrats, don't stop gaslighting. They don't stop lying. Okay. And Scott Bessent is the wrong person to do that to, because Scott Bessent is a very smart man. Okay. If there's anybody who's, very alert and aware on what's going on with the economy, is Scott Bessent. So, he's the wrong person to try this with. Okay. And these Democrat news stations just don't stop. But it gets worse, guys. Let's go. Let me know your thoughts down below, and let's go.
It's a con job that they feel like life is too expensive, but that it's a reality of their lives.
I say that there are many aspects of affordability that have gotten better under President Trump. They're going to continue to get better. I mean, unbelievably, Bloomberg had an article yesterday that said, mortgage rates aren't down that much. Well, on Inauguration Day, a 30-year mortgage was 7.8%. Yesterday, it was 6.22%. That is the single biggest component of buying a new home. And that is a gigantic drop. But it said, they're just down slightly.
Do you think tariffs help or hurt prices for consumers in this country?
I think that the tariffs help consumers because we are able to, if you go back and look, they brought down the budget deficit. And MIT came out with a study that said that 42% of the great inflation was caused by the big deficit spending. So as you bring down deficit spending, inflation will come down. And the tariffs, right now we take in substantial tariff income. Over time, that will rebalance as the factories move to the U.S., and that will become the corporate income or wage income. And by bringing down the budget deficit, we are bringing down inflation.
You're an incredibly well-respected financial mind, have been for many years. It's why you got the job, because so many people respect the way you think about the economy and money. Do you, as a rule, though, even going back to your career in finance, believe that tariffs are a tax on consumers? Do they cost consumers money?
I do not believe that tariffs are a tax on consumers.
Joe's got one for you.
So, by the way, I just want to assure you,
I mean, the more you see these MSNBC activists talk, the more and the more you see Scott Bessent speak, the more you see that as Scott Bessent speaks, these woke activists cannot comprehend economics. They don't understand economics. And so it doesn't matter how high, how high their pay is and, how much of a celebrity they are or, a fake journalist, okay, an activist, these journalists, these fake journalists, okay, these activists, they really don't understand economics at all. And you can see that the more Scott Bessent speaks, all right? And you see that it's not even just their hate for Trump. Okay, it's the fact that they really just don't understand anything of what Scott Bessent is saying. They don't understand why President Trump is, why he did tariffs the way he is. Okay, why he's, doing tariffs and what tariffs do and how that benefits the American people. They don't understand business and everything like that and business decisions. These people are ultimately these Democrats are ultimately dimwits. And that's what we're seeing on a consistent basis. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, okay? Yeah, this is why I say that MSNBC is propaganda, plain and simple. All right. And Scott Bessent is, you see that this is why I say that Scott Bessent is a good speaker and he knows the truth of the economy as it is now. All right. And that's just what you see. All right. These woke activist hosts, they're all unarmed when they go against Scott Bessent on the topic of the economy. Okay. But let me know what you guys think down below. It gets worse, guys.
Case you worry about this, Mr. Secretary, that ranchers and voters in York County who voted for Donald Trump do not wring their hands and say, oh, my God, Joe Scarborough and Morning Joe and people in MSNBC say there's an affordability crisis. So now there's an affordability crisis. I think they live it and they feel it. But let's talk about the piling on effect right now. And some of the challenges that you're going to face, the president's going to face, anybody in office is going to face about affordability. So if inflation went up, let's say 9% under Joe Biden, it came down to 3%, right? And let's say it's still kind of chugging along at 2 or 3% right now. The problem is people are comparing today with what they were paying in 2019. And so people may say they want prices to plummet and go down, but actually the challenge there is the last thing you want is deflation. So how do you explain that even if you slow down inflation to, let's say, 2%, 1.5%, 2%, which would be great?
I just want to say I love how cool and calm and collected Scott Bessent is as he's talking to these dim-witted Democrats, okay, these Democrats. They don't understand what President Trump is doing, and they will never say anything positive about President Trump and what President Trump has actually accomplished within the nation. All right, these individuals don't understand business and making business decisions, like I stated earlier within the video. Okay, another thing too is that, telling a Democrat not to lie is pretty much impossible because, it's a total waste of time. It's impossible for them to tell the truth. It's impossible for the Democrats to admit that to the American people that they were wrong about President Trump, okay, that they actually don't know what's going on. The Democrats, they have to sit here and continue to gaslight. And Scott Bessent, he's not falling for it. He's not backing down. And I absolutely love to see it. Let me know what your thoughts are about Scott Bessent and drop down below in your comments the best Scott Bessent names that you guys have down below.
Americans are still going to look back and think of the good old days before COVID, before inflation, before all of these things hit. You know what I'm saying? There's going to always be sort of this stacking price. Things are always going to be more expensive unless you have deflation, but it's the last thing you want, right?
Well, Joe, you can have disinflation and you can have some goods deflating. We want energy prices to deflate.
Right.
I think there's some food items that can deflate. But as I said before, with the affordability, there are two components. There's price, and then there's real wage gains. And Americans are going to look back and think that under President Trump's first term, they saw very substantial wage gains, especially for working Americans and the average household. So I think they're going to look back to that. And again, Steve Ratner's charts very conveniently got truncated in 2020 on that.
So, Mr. Secretary, amid this discussion of costs and prices and affordability, how does a $20 billion bailout of Argentina help Americans? You're the president's point person on that. Can you explain to those here who are feeling the pinch, including America's farmers, why the United States is helping out Argentina?
Well, do you know what a swap line is?
It's a currency swap, yes.
Yes, but what is that?
You're the Treasury Secretary.
Yes, but why would you call it a bailout?
That is how.
In most bailouts, you don't make money. The U.S. government made money. We used our financial balance sheet to stabilize the government. One of our great allies in Latin America, during an election, the president there won in a landslide. The government's going to make money, and I would rather use peace through economic strength than have to be shooting at narco boats coming offshore if the government collapsed. We have a generational opportunity in Latin America to create allies. We just saw an election in Bolivia. We're probably going to see an election in Colombia. We've seen them in Ecuador. We're going to see them in Chile. So by stabilizing the economy there and making a profit, then that's a very good deal for the American people. And there's a lot we could have been doing for American farmers, but Democrats closed the government.
So how is the United States?
I just want to point out, too, one of the craziest things that you see is Scott Bessent always looks to be the smartest in the room, even in this interview right here, okay? Scott Bessent is just too smart for these activists, okay? This is what I mean when I say Scott Bessent is just the smartest in the room, and it's on full display here, all right? No, Scott Bessent could answer these ridiculous questions 200 times, and these woke activists still don't understand what Scott Bessent is saying. This is why I believe that these MSNBC propagandists are just dimwits. They just don't get it, and they won't get it, okay? I don't know if they're smart enough to get it, and they'll continue to just be paid to just spew out propaganda and, gaslight the American people and to lie on Trump. All right. Or to lie on President Trump. So let me know what you guys think about that down below in the comments. It gets worse.
It's made money off of this, and you talk about trying to make more regional relationships. The United States is shooting alleged narco boats in international waters off the coast of Venezuela. The United States has not provided evidence yet that those are indeed drug traffickers. So how are these two things working in tandem?
We are preempting the collapse of a government and going back to a Peronist agenda and a left-wing government. What if somebody had raised their hand and said, look at what's happening with Hugo Chavez, look at what's happening with Maduro, and they help the opposition there?
Yeah, hey, Mr. Secretary, I'm just curious, just to clarify, have we made our money back already from the Argentina bailout or the swap line or whatever you call it? Have we made that money back now? Are you saying we're going to make that money back from them over time? Like, what's the payout for that?
We already have a profit on that swap line.
So have we given them? Did we transfer $20 billion?
No,
and we've already gotten back?
Absolutely not. We made a line of credit available, and a small amount of it was drawn on, and we have made a profit on that.
On that so far. Okay, very good. Hey, Mike Barnicle, next question.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? It's like, when I watch this, I'm just like, why do these, woke activists, okay, always seem so uneducated about the economics and how they work, all right? It's like Scott Bessent has to literally break it down. Like he's got to teach them the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of this stuff because they just don't know. And the crazier thing is, too, is they possibly could even make more money than Scott Bessent, all because they get paid to lie, okay? That's another possibility. That's just something that crossed my mind because these woke activists are paid to keep people misinformed and delusional and lost in the sauce regarding Trump. So it's really unique to watch Scott Bessent break everything down and how and watch these woke activists be as clueless as they are. That's something that just crossed my mind. But let me know if you guys see that down below and what your thoughts are on it.
Mr. Secretary, I hope this question doesn't piss you off.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's 4 on 1, but seems about right.
Well, okay. Yesterday, the stock.
I love that Scott Bessent called that out. Okay, he's not falling for it, and he sees that they're trying to gang up on him, and they can't beat Scott Bessent.
The stock market took a pretty good jump on news that the shutdown might come to an end, A lot of people did very well in the stock market, I assume, and I assume that you probably were one of them, and good for you.
That would be an incorrect assumption because I had to sell all my stocks to become Treasury Secretary.
You sold them all?
Had
Really?
to, yes.
But you have a blind trust, I would imagine.
There's no such thing as a blind trust.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for straightening me out on that. But anyway, a lot of people did very well. Some people didn't do as well, but most people did. But there's an element to the economy that's always intrigued me in measuring the economy. And it's not a number, and it's not reflected in a lot of the economic data that we talk about here and that we've been talking about with you this morning. It's called job insecurity. And in my experience, just going around leading a normal life, job insecurity is nearly at epidemic proportions among some people, especially people over the age of 50 or 55, especially with the advent of AI and the threat that that poses to so many people in their jobs. What does the Treasury Department and the dollar itself in your job have to do with lessening job insecurity in this country?
Well, I think what President Trump's doing in terms of bringing back high-paying precision manufacturing jobs to the U.S. is all about job security.
How many jobs have come back?
Sorry, it's just starting. I was down in South Carolina, my home state, on Friday. There's a new rare earth magnet factory going up, 800 construction jobs, 300 jobs now. They think it may go up to 3,000. Boeing, thanks to President Trump's effort of selling Boeing airplanes as part of our trade deals around the globe, Boeing believes that President Trump's helped sell up to 1,000 airplanes. The Boeing plant in Charleston is going up 50%. That's going to be 1,000 new jobs. So as we see these factories break ground, manufacturing comes back, I think there's going to be plenty of job security.
Mr. Secretary, final question, and thank you for being on, and hopefully you really don't feel like it's 4 against 1 here. But I'm curious,
You see how the Democrats are still trying to fool or toy with Scott Bessent. You know, this guy, I'm not entirely sure if this is Joe or George. It slipped my mind. Listening to all these individuals talk, I'm like, who is who again? I just know they're all woke activists. But yeah, you see that they're trying to still kind of like toy with Scott Bessent, almost gaslight him, make it seem like, oh yeah, it's not 4 against 1, it's not a 4v1. We're just having a nice conversation. But in reality, they're trying to make Scott Bessent look like a fool, but it's playing against them. Okay, they're actually playing into Scott Bessent's hand with this by showing how misinformed they actually are. All right. So it's really interesting to watch.
We have Axios, Jim Vandehei and Mike Allen. They come on an awful lot, and they've been looking into the challenges for workers that's going to be coming about with AI. Also, of course, as you know, robotics is upon us, sort of that robotics race. And so we're starting to hear anecdotally, Jim's starting to report on it as far as hard numbers go, about the challenges, especially for younger Americans getting out of college, getting jobs because of AI, and especially white collar workers. I'm curious, what is your view of that? What would you say to these younger Americans about what the world looks like, what the economy looks like in the United States over the next 5 to 10 years because of AI, and why they have reason to be hopeful?
Well, I think they have reason to be hopeful because we're laying the ground for a very strong economy and bringing back these precision manufacturing jobs. And these factory jobs aren't all jobs on the factory floor. They could be working upstairs, whether it's in the marketing, in the data processing. But I do think, I don't know how old your children are. I have one that's just a teenager, one that's a preteen, and I encourage them to learn about AI and to become AI literate. But in the history of productivity booms traditionally lead to job growth. So I would expect that over the coming months and years that we can see substantial job growth. We're seeing a CapEx boom in the U.S., and we've never had a CapEx boom that hasn't followed by an employment boom. So, but yeah. I think it's going to be for young people going into the job market. I think AI literacy and becoming, I think the term used to be digital native. I think you and I are probably of the age where we missed being digital natives. And I think in terms of being an AI digital native is going to be very important for all job seekers.
It's coming out.
Wow. And there we have it. Shout out to Scott Bessent for educating these woke activist hosts on MSNBC, another propaganda news station. Okay. You would think that they, with all this money that they're getting paid, they would know more, but they don't. They're just so clueless, and they get left in the dust when they speak to Scott Bessent. He just completely annihilates them and destroys them with just the straightforward facts, the straightforward truth. Okay. The truth that they, don't get paid to tell. All right. And you see that the people that are interviewing Scott Bessent, they haven't done their homework at all. And it's actually embarrassing for them, But yeah, ultimately, you see that MSNBC just has a bunch of like dimwits running around, and these are their, news journalists, quote unquote. But yeah, that's all for this video, you guys. Let me know what you thought down below. Let me know what you guys think down below of this interview here with Scott Bessent. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Shout out to the King Squad. Smash the like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.